The moment the aircraft door sealed shut, something invisible shifted inside the cabin. It wasn't turbulence or weather or mechanical failure, it was judgment. In the front cabin, surrounded by polished leather seats, hushed conversations, and quiet privilege, one woman sat alone, calm and composed, holding a book instead of a phone, dressed in elegance that didn't scream for attention. Her presence unsettled people who believed they could instantly recognize wealth, power, and belonging by skin tone alone. When the pilot stepped out of the cockpit and made a decision that would expose everything wrong with that belief, no one aboard imagined how dangerously wrong he was. Because the woman he tried to move wasn't just another passenger, she was the owner of the aircraft. Before the story unfolds, make sure to like this video, share with someone who believes in justice, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to Black Legacy, where powerful stories expose truth the world tries to hide. The private charter jet had been booked under a discreet corporate account, one that rarely drew attention despite owning a fleet larger than some regional airlines. The flight route connected two global financial capitals, carrying executive investors and social elites who treated the cabin as an extension of their entitlement rather than shared space. Among them sat Naomi Carter. She arrived early, moved quietly, and chose a premium window seat near the front. Not because she wanted visibility, but because she valued solitude. Naomi had learned long ago that the quieter she moved, the more truth she saw in people. Her posture was relaxed, her breathing steady, her presence unassuming. To the casual observer, she was simply another Black woman dressed well enough to be noticed, but not enough to be respected. Her story, however, was layered with sacrifice, brilliance, and relentless resilience. Naomi Carter was born into a working-class family where excellence was survival, not ambition. Her parents taught her discipline before comfort and accountability before excuses. She built her fortune not through inheritance, but through aviation, logistics, infrastructure investments, and technology partnerships that reshaped private air travel. She bought struggling fleets, modernized systems, diversified leadership, and transformed aviation from an exclusionary industry into one that quietly benefited from her vision while rarely acknowledging her face. She owned the aircraft beneath her feet, but ownership did not grant her immunity from prejudice. Around her, murmurs formed, phones appeared. A blonde woman draped in luxury stood in the aisle, recording short clips of the cabin, her laughter echoing with performative glamour. A suited man beside her leaned forward, whispering assumptions dressed as observations. Others glanced at Naomi's seat assignment, then at her skin, then back at their assumptions. Discomfort spread like static electricity. The flight crew noticed. The pilot, a seasoned professional with decades in the cockpit, prided himself on authority and control. He had flown royalty, politicians, and magnates. He believed he could identify power instantly. To him, power looked familiar, spoke loudly, and usually mirrored his own reflection. Naomi did not. Her calm silence disrupted his mental order. He reviewed the manifest twice. The seat she occupied was flagged as executive priority. His mind rejected the contradiction. Instead of questioning it, rather than confronting his assumptions, he acted on them. From his perspective, something was out of place, and it needed correction. As the cabin finalized boarding and engine prepared for taxi, he stepped out of the cockpit with purpose. His uniform symbolized authority, but beneath it lay a bias shaped by years of unchecked reinforcement. He approached Naomi. The cabin quieted. Naomi sensed it before she saw it, the weight of attention pressing toward her, the familiar tightening in the air that preceded confrontation. She closed her book gently, not surprised, not afraid, just prepared. This was not her first time. She had been questioned in boardrooms, ignored in negotiations, and underestimated in acquisitions. Each time she documented, remembered, and waited, because power didn't need to announce itself. It revealed itself when challenged. The request came with authority, but no courtesy. It carried the tone of finality, the expectation of compliance, and the certainty that resistance would be futile. Naomi listened. Around them, passengers leaned forward slightly, hungry for validation of what they already believed. The blonde woman continued filming discreetly, framing the moment as spectacle. A few passengers avoided eye contact, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. Silence became complicity. Naomi remained seated. She did not raise her voice, she did not argue, she simply asked for clarification. The clarification did not come. Instead, pressure increased. The pilot referenced policy, hierarchy, and appropriate seating. None of it was rooted in fact, only perception. His confidence grew with every second Naomi remained calm, interpreting her restraint as submission rather than control. The cabin's energy shifted from curiosity to anticipation. This was the moment many have been conditioned to expect, the quiet removal, the forced compliance, the unspoken lesson about knowing one's place. History had trained them well. Naomi's mind moved strategically. She noted the cameras, the witnesses, the chain of command. She understood the power of documentation, not as revenge, but as truth. She requested that the situation be escalated through proper channels. That request irritated him. Authority, when questioned, often reveals fragility. He interpreted her insistence as defiance rather than due process. The implication that she had rights equal to others offended his internal hierarchy. Flight attendants exchanged nervous glances. One attempted to de-escalate, suggesting a delay until confirmation could be made. The pilot refused. Time stretched. The jet remained grounded. Passengers grew restless. Complaints murmured. Fingers pointed, not at the pilot, but at Naomi. Blame found its easiest target. Social dynamics revealed themselves brutally. Privilege shielded some from accountability, while isolating others under scrutiny. Naomi remained still. Inside her silence lived decades of discipline. She thought of the countless meetings where her ideas were adopted without her name, the deals signed after she left the room, the photos cropped to exclude her presence, the investors who assumed she was an assistant, the journalists who praise a company without mentioning its founder. This moment was not isolated, it was cumulative. The pilot contacted ground operations. The response took time. During that time, the narrative spun unchecked inside the cabin. The blonde woman smiled at her screen, convinced she was capturing content rather than evidence. Naomi noticed everything. When confirmation finally came through, it arrived not as apology, but as confusion. The name on the manifest triggered escalation. Calls were placed, executives were alerted, the chain of authority reversed direction. The pilot's posture changed almost imperceptibly at first. Then his expression tightened. He rechecked the details, this time reading instead of assuming. Realization dawned slowly, then all at once. The woman he tried to move did not merely belong there. She outranked him. She owned the aircraft. She owned the company. She owned the silence that now suffocated the cabin. Passengers felt the shift immediately. The same eyes that judged now avoided contact. Phones lowered. Smiles disappeared. Power had spoken without raising its voice. The moment truth settled, the cabin transformed from a theater of entitlement into a chamber of accountability. The pilot stood frozen, trapped between authority he thought he possessed and authority he could no longer deny. His uniform no longer protected him. It exposed him. Naomi did not gloat. She did not humiliate. She did not seek revenge. Instead, she did what true leadership demanded. She requested a formal report of the incident, including all recordings, communications, and witness statements. Her tone remained professional, composed, and unshaken. That composure unsettled him more than anger ever could, because anger could be dismissed, calm could not. The blonde woman slowly lowered her phone, realizing too late that she had documented her own complicity. Others shifted uncomfortably, recognizing themselves in the silence they had chosen. The pilot attempted to justify his actions internally, but justification collapsed under scrutiny. Procedures had been bypassed. Assumptions had replaced verification. Bias had overridden professionalism. Naomi observed without interruption. This was not about punishment. It was about exposure. She knew this moment would echo beyond the cabin. Policies would change, training would be revised, careers would be reassessed, not because she demanded it, but because accountability had been made unavoidable. The aircraft eventually departed. The flight continued in silence. No one spoke to Naomi, not out of respect, but shame. She returned to her book, not as escape, but as reclaiming space that had never belonged to anyone else. When the jet landed, corporate leadership awaited discreetly. The incident had already begun rippling through internal systems. Damage control had started, but truth moved faster. Naomi declined private apologies. She requested structural review because individual regret meant nothing without institutional change. The aftermath reshaped more than one career. The pilot was placed under investigation, not as a villain, but as an example of how unchecked bias corrodes professionalism. Mandatory training was introduced across the fleet, not symbolic sessions, but measurable accountability systems. Naomi released a statement weeks later, not naming individuals, but naming patterns. She spoke about the cost of assumptions. She spoke about silence as participation. And she spoke about how racism often